This video shows you the retrofit of a large 1930 house in Wiltshire. It's single glazed metal windows throughout, last updated in around the 1970s. We're doing a full refurb and insulation. We're replacing the glazing and services, adding an attic conversion and reconfiguring some rooms. With roofing works complete, here preparing the elevations for EWI. We've got Wim framer here, supports the new Norscan triple glazed window in the insulation zone. Internal finishes underway. Here we've opened up the stairwell and landing to create some volume with roof lights drawing daylight down through the circulation space. External wall insulation is underway. We've blocked up the wall cavity and set the insulation over an adhesive parge coat for airtightness. The EWI sheets are glued and mechanically fixed. You can see the orange fixings, they're washers here. These butt up tight against the wind framers, which set an insulated airtight structural frame outside of the masonry layers, which the windows and the insulation can be taped to and allows freedom of sequencing. A little look inside as the fit out is underway. New spaces are opened up for social family life, and this also links out to the garden. We've got underfloor heating throughout the ground floor. They laid over some new insulation. Internal glazed fire doors will separate the stairwell when the alarm is triggered, but keeps a feeling of connection into the stairwell and also allows some of this nice daylight through into downstairs rooms. First fix is underway. You can see the light fittings dangling from the ceiling. Wires ready for connection. Our clients wanted a wood stove. As this is an airtight build, we have an MVHR system, and one of these holes up in the ceiling here is the air supply to this room. So it's been necessary to give the stove its own air supply. Now we've got a direct feed into the back which runs under the floor from outside. The smoke is taken up into the lined flue and out to the atmosphere, making the stove a completely separate loop. The stove isn't really needed for heating. We've got an air source heat pump powered underfloor heating system which provides all the comfort that we need. But a wood stove is a nice thing to have. In here we've got a manifold that serves the underfloor heating system. You can see a number of pipes coming off of these two bars, which are a flow and return, and the little pipes off of those all serve the different zones, which gives plenty of control to different areas, meaning we can be comfortable without using more heat than we need to. The flow and return here link back to the plant room. Here we are in the plant room, and you've got the incoming electrical services here. There's the meters and a split phase serving the air source heat pump. Up here the pipes are being installed, and you can see the air ducts serving the MVHR. They're going to be linked up soon when the unit's installed. We've also got hot and cold water and the heating pipes ready to connect to the pumps and the tanks. Back outside, the EWI is nearly ready for finishes. At the bottom, brick slip will mimic the original brick behind the insulation. There'll be render above. Here's taking a little look at these nice Norscan triple glazed windows. These are sealed into the opening with foam airtight tape. Floors have been screeded, ready for finishes. We removed the existing suspended floors and laid lots of insulation over a new damp-proof membrane. In the bathrooms, much of the servicing and fittings are hidden away behind this green moisture-resistant plasterboard. Thermostatic valves by the bath, concealed WC cistern, and so on. This is a new flat roof which has an EPDM rubber membrane laid over insulation and a parapet upstand at the edge which links up with the wall insulation there. There's a gutter formed along one side running to an outlet through the parapet. It'll have an aluminium capping over the edge junction here. Some fiddly details to tie in with the EWI, such as fitting a render board to the membrane junction, as you can see just here. Up on the roof, new tiling neatly installed here alongside the new south-facing solar panels. They're on a mounting system which sets a waterproof layer onto the battens, so the tiling is set just over this, as you can see at the edge junction there. Flat roofs at the top of the house also have two further PV arrays up there. Now with the render gone on, the building's starting to look quite smart. The lower part is ready to have its brick slips fitted once they arrive, and drains are being dug now that the scaffolding is mostly removed. A new green oak balcony and roof replaces the existing one which had rotted beyond economic repair. Back inside, we're looking at one of the MVHR units. This one is in an attic space, just off a bedroom. It's quite a big unit for this large house, and you can see that there's a range of ducts which spread out to circulate fresh air, flow and return throughout the house. Threading these networks of ducts through the house is quite a major design challenge. The unit itself, though, is wonderfully quiet, and servicing it is really simple, just a matter of changing these filters periodically. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Austin Design Works on site in Wiltshire.
Affordable housing for me means not just being able to afford to live on the breadline, it means being able to have a standard of life where you can raise children and actually nourish your children.
It's very, very difficult to find affordable, rentable, very clean houses to live in, particularly if you have asthma or any breathing difficulty.
I was in my 50s, watching my parents declining into their old age and becoming more infirm, and thinking, because I have no children, I need to do something to make sure that my life doesn't end up with me sitting in a nursing home vegetating.
What we've always been aware of, or in a growing sense really, is that we have been all along developing community. The relationships between people are as important as the building the homes.
In the UK, we've got a loneliness epidemic and many other social crises, which through good housing design, I believe that we can influence and improve. We're here at Hazelmead in Bridport, West Dorset, a couple of miles from the sea, on the edge of a market town. It was incredibly challenging to achieve planning permission in an area of outstanding natural beauty, specially conserved for its incredible setting of wild hills, countryside and rural farms. I was first approached by a group of local residents to work on the project back in 2012, and in 2014 founded the practice on the basis of the commission to design 53 new co-housing units.
We were really lucky because of local family wanted to sell their field to a community project to have a community legacy. We bought it in two parts, and we managed the first part to get money from our supporters. We did buy the second part of the land with help from the local council, who by then understood much more about what we were doing and realised that we were going to provide 53 affordable houses which would meet housing need.
The project is comprised of a series of terraces which all face south towards the sun, capturing solar energy both through the big windows that the residents were so passionate to have, and also actively through the photovoltaic panels on the roofs of each of the houses that form part of this microgrid, generating energy and electricity for use in the homes. The houses are designed to the AECB carbon light standard, which is an incredibly low energy performance metric, and they use all electric heating. They have MVHR units providing fresh air and ventilation controlled to each of the homes, and they also have air source heat pumps that are internal on top of water cylinders, and each of those two technologies is duct pipework out through a chimney at the back of the houses, which reinterprets this traditional domestic feature in a 21st century way. The residents always set us a brief of designing homes that would be more neighbourly, more affordable and more sustainable. I would add to that they've been more ambitious. They wanted no boundaries, lower fences, bigger windows, higher ceilings, vaulted stairwells that create a sense of spaciousness, light, that are unbelievably powerful for the sense of well-being that the residents have. The tenure mix at Hazelmead is 50% social affordable rent through the Housing Association and 50% shared ownership, with staircasing up to a maximum of 80%. That means that the Community Land Trust retain 20% of the value of the home in perpetuity and collect a ground rent on that as well as the other units. And that allows them to fund and support the management, maintenance and operation of the development. The flats occupy the southeast and the southwest of the site, closer to car parking, so hopefully better for some of the older residents that live in them. And the flats themselves have got these great big vaulted ceilings in the first floor, Juliet balconies with amazing views, And the ground floor flats have got gardens which I know the residents really love to be in.
There's green from all my windows. It's a spacious flat and we're growing all our own food. I've never felt healthier in my life. I gave my car away last year. I walk more. You know, I'm 76 in 3 months' time. I just feel so blessed being here. It's really wonderful, spacious, airy, and I know my neighbours. It's just fabulous.
Co-housing relies upon creating design that encourages social interaction. Hazelmead focuses around a community green and has a common house at the heart of the development, which all of the homes look towards, encouraging people to use it, participate within the community.
Maybe have shared meals, parties, skills sharing, maybe little classes. That multi-generational aspect is really, really important. And then there's the other common facilities which we would really like and which actually exist here physically, the guest rooms and the laundry. Guest rooms really important because one of the principles of co-housing is that you don't have big houses with lots of empty rooms. And so people moved here thinking they would have guest rooms and so haven't got any spare room. Unfortunately, that's not happened because of lack of money. But we're hopeful that there will be sources of funding at some point, certainly to finish the Common House, which we are now building ourselves. The other common facility, which I think is wonderful, as well as all the land we've got, are the food growing areas. Behind both terraces of houses, there are plots, and everybody contributes to that. Another essential kind of ingredient of co-housing is that you look after the land and the site and everything in it together. And for us, it's particularly important because it keeps our service charge down if we do the work ourselves.
And the streets themselves, being car-free, allow people to walk between their homes, having casual interactions where they don't have fences at their front gardens. They have benches outside the front doors, and the kitchens and dining spaces look out openly onto those safe spaces where people can congregate.
Many of the people here on site run workshops for the children, and the kids will get their hands dirty planting and then tending to them, watering them. It's idyllic, it really is. It's not something I ever thought I'd be able to share with my kids. Often just brings a tear to my eye that we're lucky enough to be here.
I'm fairly on my own. I don't have a family and I don't have any brothers or sisters around, so this is my, my extended family, I guess. What's really good here is I can contribute to running the place, which is, I like doing that in all sorts of ways. I'm not sort of being looked after.
It benefits me enormously to be in a place like this, both inside and outside. We've been blessed with huge windows at both sides of the house. Inside, these houses are so clean. I hardly use my inhaler any longer.
I've learnt how to clay plaster a wall in the common house. I've learnt how to help lay a floor in there. I do a lot of the gardening here. I feel better now and I have more energy than a lot of the 50-year-olds that live in the co-housing project, which is a testament to how it's feeding my soul and making me so happy.
It's pretty extraordinary that a £10 million housing project has been delivered by a group of predominantly local women in their later years who sought to deliver alternative housing for themselves that was more affordable, more neighbourly and more sustainable. And I think their drive for sociable housing that could really address many of their different needs in later age is inspiring for many of us. And they also had the foresight to create this as a place not just for themselves but for future generations, for younger people, for families. And in all of the discussions we had throughout the design phase, they were thinking, how would this be inhabited by other people, by younger people as well? And I think it's a real testament to their vision and passion that they were able to do that so successfully.
I'm 81 and when I had my birthday this year, I think someone got the digits the wrong way around because I actually feel 18 inside.
Hazelmead is a real-life, completed example of a housing project addressing many of the crises of our time. So why don't we have a co-housing project in every town, city and village in the UK?
Welcome to the Imperial War Museum at Duxford in Cambridge. We at Ecological Building Systems are currently working with Parker Ray Construction, the museum, Archetype Architects and George Cook & Sons, the installers, on thermally upgrading an office artefact outbuilding. So this building is a solid brick construction, and they've been insulating internally with our cork-lined thermoplaster, diathanite Thermactive. And then Calcitherm Climate Board is going to be applied over the top, and then with a finished Calcitherm skim. If you look at some of these horizontal areas, this is where they actually had an existing dado rail, and the conservation officer wanted to preserve that dado rail, so we can't spray the diathanite directly onto it. So what happened is they made some battens and then covered over with a woodwall board and insulated behind with fibrous insulation. And then the Calcitherm's going to cover the whole surface. These vertical boards that you see here, this is our Bosig Phonotherm. It's a thermal brake board that's made from upcycled PUR, polyurethane, from recycled material. It has very, very high compressive strength. And they're actually using it here as a patras for radiators. So in other words, instead of having to fix all the way through the diathanite and Calcitherm back into the brick, they're going to fix into these thermal rigid Bosig Phonotherm boards. So what we're going to do now is go upstairs and show you the application and the finish when they put the Calcitherm Climate Board on the top. Once the diathanite Thermactive has been installed and allowed to dry, then you can apply the calcium silicate board onto the surface. This is called Calcitherm Climate Board. It's Euro Fire Class A1 rated, non-combustible. It's also very breathable, moisture vapor diffusion open, and it's also got a high degree of water capillarity. The boards are actually bonded onto the surface of the diathanite using a Calcitherm special adhesive. It's like a tiling process. And you can see this is a very neat job where you've got nice staggered joints and nice symmetry. You can also see here, this is where they've started applying the Calcitherm Luno finish. So it's a skim coat of the finish, and they've embedded in a mesh, and then they're going to put the final skim on afterwards. Okay, and this is the final result after the Calcitherm board has been applied and skim finished. It's actually not yet been painted, but you wouldn't think so because it looks beautiful and smooth and clean and white. And you've got a beautiful, now well insulated, breathable, water capillary active, and also non-combustible Euro Fire Class A1 insulated wall.
When did you first become aware of the Green Register?
I would say probably 2006, 2007. And I had an epiphany. I went to a exhibition in the zoo, actually. They've got like a conference room at the zoo. They used to have a conference room in the zoo. They used to have auctions there and stuff. There was a exhibition of sustainable products. I bumbled into this seminar and the speaker was Neil May, the late great. And I sat there and I heard him talking about all this stuff that I had no clue about. And I'd already been in building for about 30 years by that time. How we build affects the health of the occupants. I was like, really?
I was writing at the beginning with Lucy. I used to work with Lucy, probably now as a company called Construction Resources. And we used to do seminars, like educational seminars, not 25 years ago, 27 years ago now. And sort of Green Register grew out of that. So when Lucy left Construction Resources and I left Construction Resources, we sort of stayed in touch and we carried on from there. So in many respects, I was at the Green Register before it was even the Green Register. So I was a member of the Quarrymen as opposed to a member of the Beatles, put it that way.
Well, some time ago now, I think it was 2005, whilst I was working in a practice, very small practice. Not sure how I heard of it. Pretty sure it was 2005 that I began with them.
And you said it was when you were working at a small practice?
A small practice in Brighton. They kindly paid for me to become a member. And I did back then, I think we did 2-day course, something like that. Yeah. And then that enabled you to become a member. Obviously, that's evolved quite some bit over the years, which is good, which I think has increased membership somewhat, has made it more accessible to people, which is great.
1999, that was the year when I met Lucy Pedler for the first time, and we met whilst a conference was being planned for the RIBA. It was being run by Building Design, and the conference was Green is the Colour. And I was asked to talk about regulations and standards and whatever else that were driving sustainability. And of course, at that time, there was nothing. Virtually nothing. So I had lots of time on my hands and very little to say. So I kind of gave people a good introduction to, the regulations that surround the industry but are not directly affecting us. So I met Lucy then at a meeting with lots of other dark greenies. So that was quite a nice introduction to a large group of very enthusiastic people.
What do you think's the most important thing that the Green Register has achieved over the years?
Bringing awareness of sustainable building. I mean, it's done what it says on the tin as far as I'm concerned.
From my personal point of view, almost a bit of a victim of its own success in some ways. Yeah, and occasionally, I've been working up in Scotland and I've had somebody, I think I met you before, and they quoted a time 10 years ago when they attended one of our courses. I think the main thing Green Register's done is be part of mainstreaming environmental and sustainability issues in the construction industry.
Well, amazing that it's here 25 years later. That's an achievement in itself, isn't it? Like any business that can sustain, what we've been through, certainly in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been a kind of strange time globally, isn't it? Obviously, it's getting a message out there, and the more members it got over the years is testament to the work that it's doing.
First of all,
that's
25
right.
years.
Yeah.
Well done. I think the one thing which really encouraged me is that because there was a bit of friction with AECB in the early days, and Lucy got kicked out as the part chair because the membership decided that TGR were against AECB and would try and steal their membership. There was this kind of friction. I think the one thing that I think is most important is that Lucy got past all that, and reinforced the opportunity for all of us in the green world to kind of point in the same direction and work together. And so facilitating all of the other organisations, especially the Sustainable Development Group and all of their individual activities, to support them by promoting and advertising their events. I think that's probably one of the most important things from my perspective, because we all have to get on with it. We've got to do it together, and we need more manpower, woman power, to make that happen.
Is there something you remember learning at a Green Register event that you still use today?
Well, most of it. I've done wall installation, and I've been involved in actually delivering wall installation training, and we've had people come to our sites in the past air tightness seminars, and then I went up to MBT and did one with Seeger. Building biology really hooked me in with the excellent Thomas Gardner. I worked with him on, he was my architect on my passive house that I'm sitting in. So that was of great interest.
Yeah, as I said, in air tightness and using actual breathable insulations or materials wherever you can. Also, obviously, the usual sort of reduce, reuse, recycle, any other R's that are relevant now. Might be mindful of looking at a building and it's what you could reuse. Is it necessary to remove this or take that out? Because where does that material go? So it becomes more kind of circular. Just being mindful of that at the design stage. So that saves a lot of things, obviously, time on site, cost and budget for your client, but also wasting materials that could just stay in the building, and therefore that carbon is still within that building.
Thousands of things. because I don't just do a job, I also disseminate widely on so many things. I'm disseminating through CPD, through jargon busters, through checklists, through products, knowing which products are the good ones, and methods of construction. So all of the seminars are phenomenal in that, keeping me up to date, keeping me aware of new developments or old developments that are being reworked. Everything that I've done has been influenced by everything that I've learned.
Who have you met through the Green Reg that you've gone on to work with more?
Well, numerous people. On the Future Proof WhatsApp group, there's quite a few people that put up stuff, questions and different experiences. So, I mean, that's all very useful. I mean, Ben East, he gets materials from us sometimes and we talk about this and that. And Dan Duckworth, he came in today to pick up some wood flex from Bristol Sustainable Builders. Mike Neat had a bit to do with him over the years. Yeah, I mean, one or two architects. Obviously, Joe Edgard. So, yeah, I mean, it's been great from that point of view, making contacts.
Yeah, Lucy and Kath Hassel, I'm still very much in contact with, and Brian Murphy. So those ones are like that. But that, if you go back to the year 2000, that's the names you'll find.
Kath Hassel, for one. So Kath is one of the well, she's on the steering group. She's one of the kind of SBS lead speakers and all of the other CPD stuff that's done. Kath and I have done some work together where we were disseminating to an RIBA audience in the southeast, where I was asked to do a series of seminars, 6 of them. In fact, I think it was 12, so 6 times 2. And Kath came in to talk about the services side of the retrofit ambition. So that was very helpful, that I knew of Kath and I could invite Kath to come and kind of do her part in the presentations.
What role do you think the Green Reg can play in the sector over the coming years?
Well, more of the same.
Having more physical presence now would be relevant, as I say, if they were able to have hubs, which would then enable, some of the tours and things that take place. They look really interesting towards the building, but they always tend to be the southwest, which is quite challenging to get to conveniently, time-wise. So we wouldn't go on them, but it'd be good to make those events further away, I suppose, if that's possible for some buildings, people to get to. But also, if there was more regional hubs that could play a part in that, I think that would be to explore.
I always tell my students, as soon as you finish this course, forget what you've been taught so far and go and do a TGR training course, because that's where you're going to learn stuff. That's where it's fundamentally important for these youngsters to kind of get the basics of construction and environmental construction.
A cultural shift, which I said we need to move away from it. Sustainability just being another bit of burdens and bureaucracy we have to deal with, to being much more integral to the building process. And I know full well there's no parts of the building regulations that any client would pay for if they didn't have to. But I mean, that as an architect. So getting that in there. I also thinking, certainly this is my own personal view over the past, well, really since COVID, but really in the past 3 or 4 years, and I've worked on a few projects, we have got to unelite sustainability issues.
What one development would you like to see in sustainable construction over the coming years?
Well, I'd like to see sustainable construction going in the direction and being taken on board far and wide, more proper materials being used, natural materials. So yeah, more products manufactured in this country. I mean, ideally wood fibre as well. Although I have heard that they actually do use newly cut down trees rather than timber waste.
I think there needs to be some honesty, perhaps above all else. Again, in this part of the world, I live on the west coast of Scotland, which I know is a fairly unique area. But heat pumps here are viewed with derision by everybody that has them because they don't deliver anything approaching what the EPC says they should do. For a long time, renewable energy in particular, but sustainability in general, has had some honesty issues.
Making natural materials just more affordable every day. We need to get rid of the man-made stuff and make the natural materials the norm. And that includes making them affordable, not just for those people that want to invest in sustainable building, because it's still seen as a bit of a luxury. It actually shouldn't be a luxury.
I have to go back to the RIBA and ARB. They have to change their ways. I suppose secondly is kick the RICS out because they're interfering with LCA life cycle assessment, EPD, and making carbon more difficult to quantify. Professional Notes version 2 has made life cycle assessment and embodied energy, embodied carbon, sequestered carbon more complicated, and they are making it easier for business as usual to persist.
Because it's not a kind of accessible enough tool.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Surrey, one of the directors at the Green Register, and today I'm having a chat with our founder, Lucy Pedler, who is started the Green Register back in 2000. And Lucy, what inspired you to start the Green Register?
That is a very good question. I was a practicing architect and I'd taken a sort of side step in my profession to work at the UK's first environmental building centre, and there I was the seminar coordinator. I would run the seminars both for in-house events and also go out a lot to architects and so on. And so one of the reasons I decided to start the Green Register was when I went out to talk to architects and other construction professionals, there was a real need for independent information. They could get lots of free lunches and CPDs from manufacturers and suppliers, but they weren't really getting unbiased information. So one of the motivations was to provide independent information on sustainable construction. The second was that at the centre we had a lot of clients coming in and they were really on board with building sustainably, but back in 2000 there really weren't that many contractors and architects and engineers that could deliver. So they'd come into the centre, we'd have this fantastic tour and talk about their project, and they'd go out again and they just couldn't find construction professionals that would be A, committed to it, and B, have the experience. So that second idea was to have a register of people who did have this experience. And the third was that back in 2000 it was quite an isolating experience being in sustainable construction, and I wanted to have a kind of network support group for people who could share ideas and buoy each other up and learn from each other's experience and so on. So there were sort of three different reasons for starting it all.
And who did you collaborate with to start the Green Register?
So I lived in Southwark and I approached Southwark Council, and there was a guy called Bob Jones in building control, and I basically had to sort of pitch the idea to him, and he actually gave us some startup money, which was £5,000, which was quite a lot in 2000. We also got a lot of support from Southwark Energy Agency, which again was in Southwark, and they were doing a lot of work in trying to convert people from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And I would actually like to mention my boss, Richard Handyside, who's no longer with us, but he was the director of Construction Resources, the Environmental Building Centre, and he allowed us to run the first seminars of the Green Register within Construction Resources. So we had some really wonderful support against what felt like a bit of a hard sell to a lot of people in the construction industry.
And what were the biggest challenges in starting and sustaining the Green Register?
Some of them still exist. The construction industry is really mired in inertia. You know, people don't want change, and neither are they either motivated by or encouraged, or there's no sort of driver to change. Poor building standards are not pulled up for their shoddy standards, and we've got a system in the UK where you've got builder control run by local authorities, but you also have the private AIs. They are competing for work with with building control, and so actually what you get is a competitive environment, and there's a sort of race to the bottom in terms of meeting building regs. So poor quality building is getting through. So I think those were the two main issues, is that nobody really wanted to change. They couldn't see that nobody was pulling them up for poor building. Why would you?
How have you moved past these kind of challenges?
So much has come from the reaction from the Green Register members. So as soon as we started putting on these courses and training, we got such a positive response. It felt like we were on the right track. We knew we were on the right track. The direction of travel was towards sustainable building, even though it was going to be very slow. But every time we ran a course, you know, we got such positive feedback from all the attendees that we knew we had to keep going. Plus, bloody determination on my part, I think.
It served you well. And what was the first training course?
Well, that was actually in construction resources. So we felt that we wanted to exclude, this is probably not a very fair way of saying, we wanted to exclude bandwagon jumpers. We didn't want people just to be able to pay a fee and become a Green Register member and not really demonstrate any commitment to it. So we had a prerequisite course that they had to go on, and at the time it was called Ecological Building and Services, and a few years later we changed it into Sustainable Building and Services. A 2-day course held at Construction Resources, and it covered what we thought were all the essential issues, which is energy, water, waste, materials, and also the social issues around sustainable construction. So, you know, so sustainable construction isn't only about environmental issues, it's also about equality and making sure the people involved in the whole process and using the buildings afterwards, and the people who are gathering the raw materials to make them, all of those people have some kind of fair treatment. So we've covered all of those issues, healthy building interiors. So all of those were subjects that we covered in the 2-day course back in 2000. And really that hasn't changed a great deal. You know, obviously there's been some updates, there's been legislation, there's been changes in practice, but essentially those are all the issues that are still important to consider.
Yeah, those topics are still completely live today, aren't they?
They absolutely are.
I'd say that we're still running training along those lines as well.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go away.
No, and that's both interesting in terms of there's a kind of universal set of subjects, but also, you know, we haven't yet got everybody to understand those, so we're still working on that, on those subjects.
How have supporters of the Green Register sort of helped to sustain and grow the reach of the organisation?
I think without supporters we wouldn't have survived. You know, it's not a money-making venture to run intentionally low-cost training courses. We intentionally have the bar very low because we want as many people to join and to learn about sustainable construction, and if it wasn't for all of our supporters we wouldn't have been able to carry on. But you know, we're now an 8-person company, and the kind of support we get is through the members who continue to give us positive feedback about what we're doing. The team at the Green Register, you know, it's a fantastic group of people that work together, and also all the partners at the Green Register. I would like to raise one particular flag for ecological building systems, who've been with us right from the get-go, and not only have they supported us, but they provide amazing training content. You know, they have such good, technically competent trainers, and we've worked with them for years and years and years, and they just do a fantastic job.
And what kind of impact do you think the Green Register has had on the construction industry over the past 25 years?
Well, I think that considering the Green Register has trained thousands and thousands of construction professionals, the biggest impact, well, it's in two parts. It's helping the construction professionals to understand the issues, but it's also that they then educate their clients, they educate the building control, educate the planners, all the other stakeholders in the process of building a building. So it feeds out. You get one architect coming in for a course, and they will go back, and they might, often actually they're sponsored by their employer to do the course, and then they go back and they have to kind of tell their colleagues about the course. So I think that's been very rewarding for the Green Register to know that we have influenced thousands of decisions in the construction industry in a positive way.
Yeah, so even if you may have only had a handful of people on the course from that organisation, they've branched out the network. They've influenced their own network.
Absolutely.
And shared that knowledge, which is the important thing. Is one of our key sort of parts of our mission, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very effective way to do it. One person comes on a course and they go back and disseminate the information.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really rewarding. Yeah.
What do you think will be the focus of sustainable construction in the future?
Well, I hope, and I actually think it will, is all going in the right direction. If you look at the legislative changes, apart from the bonfire red tape that a certain government did back in 2010, most of the legislation and standard is going in the right direction. And so as people become more aware, for whatever motivation, there might be people who just want to save on fuel bills, which of course is a big issue now, or they might truly want to reduce the impact of their building. But I think it's all going to be towards that aim of reducing the impact of construction. And there's other countries in the world who've already demonstrated that better buildings, more sustainably built buildings, actually have a higher value. And of course we're not doing it for financial gain, but actually that's another reason somebody might want to do something sustainably, is that they know that they're going to get payback, or that there's a financial reason for doing it, over and above the environmental reasons too.
Yeah.
So I'm very optimistic.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and I'm just so proud that the Green Register continues, and it's one of the few independent organisations that trains people in the UK, and the feedback we get is just saying we're doing the right thing, we should carry on doing it.
And what would you like to see the Green Register do next?
More of the same. But we've got some very exciting initiatives. We've got a trailer which is retrofit in transit, which is a big change for the Green Register. Normally, we have people coming to us. In COVID, we had a virtual situation of training, but now we can actually go out, and I find this really exciting. We've already been to schools and communities. We're going to go to further education, colleges in the future. And if you can't get Mohammed to go to the mountain, you just bring the mountain to Mohammed. And that's a really effective way of doing, for example, in further education colleges where there may be construction courses. That college might not be able to afford to let 30 people out for a day to do some training, but you rock up at 7:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock and you give them a couple of hours training from our amazing trailer. And all of a sudden you've got the builders of the future who've understood about sustainable construction. So really, really excited about that. Also, we've got level 2 retrofit qualification, which is one of the first times the Green Register's got some kind of third-party accredited course, which is amazing. We usually haven't gone for third-party accreditation because it's very expensive to do, but through the retrofit process, we've been able to get this level 2 formally certified course. And I think we should continue to do what we do so well, which is independent training to all stakeholders in the construction industry. Building a building isn't just the preserve of one profession, it's all professions. We had a fantastic program called Future Proof where we trained builders and contractors. So the more cross-disciplinary discussion we get, the more likelihood is we'll get a really proper sustainable building future.
And that's right.
Well done.